On a quiet street in a small town, there lived a woman named Clara. She had recently married a kind man named David, who had a 10-year-old son, Ben, from his late wife. Ben was a shy boy with a love for drawing and reading. Clara, however, didn't like Ben. She saw him as a burden and often treated him poorly. Clara had always been a woman who valued control and order. She prided herself on running her household efficiently. When David introduced Ben into her life, she initially thought she could manage. But as time passed, she grew resentful. She felt that Ben's presence disrupted her perfect plans. David, on the other hand, adored Ben. He often spent time with his son, encouraging his creativity and listening to his dreams. Clara would watch them from afar. Her heart is always a mix of jealousy and frustration. She couldn't understand why David's attention to Ben made her feel so insecure. Every morning, Clara gave Ben the smallest breakfast, often leaving him hungry for school. She would scold him for the smallest mistakes, like spilling a drop of water or forgetting to close the door. "You need to learn to be responsible," she would say sternly. Ben never argued back. He quietly accepted her harsh words, his sad eyes betraying his feelings. Despite Clara's treatment, Ben never complained to his father. He didn't want to cause trouble. Instead, he found solace in his drawings. His little room became his sanctuary, filled with crayons, pencils, and stacks of paper. David noticed Ben's quietness but assumed it was due to the loss of his mother. He didn't see how Clara's actions affected his son. Clara made sure to be on her best behavior when David was around, masking her coldness with forced smiles. One day, David had to travel for work and asked Clara to take good care of Ben. Clara nodded with a forced smile, but as soon as David left, her true colors showed. "Clean the entire house," Clara ordered Ben the moment David's car drove away. "And don't even think about making a mess after you're done." Ben quietly obeyed. He swept, mopped, and dusted every corner of the house. But when it was finally time for dinner, Clara handed him a plate with a piece of old bread and some water. "This is all you get," she said sharply. "Don't expect me to cook for you." Ben ate without complaint. Later that evening, he retreated to his room, where he drew a picture of a happy family. It was his way of dreaming about the life he wished he had. That evening, it started raining heavily. Clara sat comfortably in the living room, sipping tea and watching TV. Ben, on the other hand, was in his tiny room drawing a picture. Despite the cold, Clara refused to let him use the heater. "You'll be fine," she said dismissively when he asked. As the rain poured, the power suddenly went out. The house became dark and silent except for the sound of the rain. Clara, annoyed, lit a candle and called for Ben to check the fuse box. "Why me?" Ben asked hesitantly. "Because I said so," Clara snapped. Ben hesitated but obeyed. As he walked to the basement, thunder roared, and Clara felt a strange chill. She brushed it off, assuming the storm was making her uneasy. Hours passed, and Ben didn't return. Clara became worried. "Ben, where are you?" she called, but there was no answer. She grabbed a flashlight and went to the basement. To her shock, she found Ben lying on the floor, unconscious. He had slipped on the wet stairs and hit his head. Panic surged through Clara as she knelt beside him. "Ben, wake up!" she cried, shaking him gently. When he didn't respond, she quickly carried him upstairs and called an ambulance. Her hands trembled as she explained the situation to the operator. At the hospital, the doctor told her Ben had a mild concussion but would be okay. Clara felt a mix of relief and guilt as she sat by his bedside, waiting for him to wake up. As Clara sat by Ben's bed, she looked at his pale face and felt guilty. She remembered how she had ignored his needs, how she had blamed him for things he didn't do, and how she never gave him love. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "I'm so sorry, Ben. I've been so cruel." When Ben woke up, he looked at Clara with his big, innocent eyes. "Are you mad at me?" he asked softly. Clara's heart broke. "No, sweetheart, I'm not mad. I'm sorry for everything." From that day, Clara changed. She started treating Ben with kindness and care. She cooked his favorite meals, helped him with homework, and even joined him in his drawing sessions. Slowly, Ben began to smile more, and the house felt warm and happy. Clara realized that her resentment had stemmed from her insecurities and fear of not being enough for David. As she spent more time with Ben, she saw how wonderful he truly was. She admired his creativity and resilience. When David returned, he noticed the change. "What happened while I was gone?" he asked, surprised by the bond between Clara and Ben. Clara simply smiled and said, "I realized how lucky I am to have Ben in my life." Years later, when Ben became a famous artist, he dedicated his first art exhibit to my stepmom, who showed me love. Clara's eyes filled with tears of pride and gratitude. She never regretted changing her ways, but she always regretted the time she had lost treating Ben unfairly. Now she knew better. Love could heal even the deepest wounds.